Mom suddenly looked at me and said, "We're embarrassed by you, you'll never be like your brother." I smiled and walked out. Today, she's calling me Nonstop because I still remember the sound of her voice, icy, sharp, a whisper trying hard to be a dagger. "We're embarrassed by you. You'll never be like your brother." She didn't yell it. That would have almost made it easier, more forgivable. But no. My mother said it like it was just another Tuesday afternoon, like she was commenting on the weather. My dad didn't flinch. He didn't even look up from his soup. My older brother, Nathan, wasn't even there. He never had to be. His presence lived in every frame on the wall, every sentence that began with, "Why can't you be more like?" It wasn't the first time I'd heard some version of that sentence. It was practically the soundtrack of my childhood. But this time, something in me shifted. I didn't argue. Didn't protest or crack some bitter joke to lighten the tension like I used to. I just smiled. It wasn't a smile of defeat or bitterness. It was clarity. Cold, calm, crystal clarity. Then I stood up from the dinner table, left my half-eaten food on the plate, and walked out of their house. I didn't slam the door. I didn't give them the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. I just left. They didn't follow me. They never did. It was drizzling outside, that thin spring rain that doesn't soak you, just lingers on your skin. I walked to my car, sat behind the wheel, and for the first time in my life, I felt weightless. That moment, the smile, the silence, the door closing behind me, wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. I didn't call them the next day. Or the day after. In fact, I didn't speak to any of them for years. No birthdays, no holidays, not even a passing "Hope you're well." Nathan, the golden boy, kept climbing, internships, investment banking, moving from Manhattan to Silicon Valley and back again. My parents beamed in every Christmas card they sent to extended family, with Nathan's face front and center like a brand logo. Me? I disappeared. And I planned it that way. While they were busy making appearances, I was making progress. I started working nights, freelancing, learning coding, then UX design. What began in a coffee-stained corner of a shared apartment turned into a small agency, then a startup, and finally, a company that now has offices in 3 cities. No one clapped for me. No one noticed. And I liked it that way. But everything changed last Thursday. I was in my office, corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, when my phone started vibrating. My mother. Again. It had been ringing every hour on the hour since the night before. I figured it was another accidental dial, or maybe she finally remembered she had a second son and wanted a favor. But this time I answered. "Hello?" Silence for a beat. Then a sound I never thought I'd hear, her voice shaken. "James! We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair. "Oh? What about?" "It's Nathan." I didn't say anything. I just waited. He's been arrested." Now that caught my attention. "SEC, wire fraud. Embezzlement. It's all over the news." And just like that I knew, this wasn't about Nathan. This was about me. I didn't react the way she probably expected. No gasping. No frantic questions. Just silence. The kind that stretches out long enough to make people uncomfortable. Finally I said, "I see." My mother stumbled over her words, clearly thrown off. He made a mistake. That's all. It's complicated. They're saying things in the media that aren't true?" I asked, calm as ever. She hesitated. "Well, it's just exaggerated." That word again. Exaggerated. They used it when I said I felt neglected. When I told them I was struggling. When they told me I was nothing like my brother. It was always me who was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. Now, the tables had turned. And I didn't even have to raise my voice. I could hear her trying to compose herself on the other end of the line. "Listen, James. Your father and I, we were hoping maybe you could help. Just talk to someone. You know people now, don't you? In tech, finance, lawyers." There it was. The ask? Why? I said, still staring out the window at the skyline. Isn't Nathan the one who always figured everything out? She didn't answer that. He's innocent, she said instead, a little too quickly. Is he? The pause that followed was longer. And heavier. They froze our accounts, James. His assets, the ones your father and I, were connected to. We're at risk of losing the house. The retirement. Everything. I could hear the desperation in her voice now. Raw. Real. Like the foundation beneath her feet had finally cracked. She added, barely above a whisper. We didn't know what he was doing. I didn't believe her. And she knew it. But I wasn't angry anymore. That ship had sailed years ago. Now I was something else, free. I let the silence stretch a little longer, just enough to make her squirm. Then I said, You know what the last thing you ever said to me was? James, you said we're embarrassed by you. You'll never be like your brother. She didn't deny it. I could hear her breathing shift, like she was trying to decide if crying might help. I beat her to it. I'm glad I'm not like him. She tried again, this time more cautious. James, we were wrong. We didn't know. No, I said sharply. You didn't care to know. And now that the golden child's been dragged through the mud, you want the invisible one to clean it up. She broke then. Her voice cracked. Please. Just talk to him. He's not handling this well. And I almost laughed. Because for the first time in my life, I was the one in control of the conversation. Of the tone. Of the outcome. And they didn't know what to do with that. After I hung up, I sat in my office and stared out at the skyline, thinking about everything they didn't see. Not once in all those years did they ask what I'd been building. Not when I launched my app. Not when I closed my first round of funding. Not even when a Forbes article mentioned me as one of the startups to watch. They didn't know about the company because they never thought I was capable of anything worth watching. I remembered being 16, watching my father beam at Nathan's high school graduation. I had a stomach bug that night, sick enough that I could barely stand. But when I asked to leave early, my dad turned to me, visibly annoyed, and said, Don't make this about you. That was the rule in our house. I was never allowed to make anything about me. So I learned to survive in the background. I became a master at shrinking myself. Until I didn't. I poured that silence, that hunger, into work. Into craft. Into outlasting every dismissive glance, every backhanded comment about how James is more of a quiet type, or Nathan always had the ambition in the family. What they called silence was really just observation. I was watching. Taking notes. Learning. And now, the very son they ignored was the only one who could save them. It was poetic, really. Later that night, I poured a glass of whiskey and pulled out an old photo. One my mother had mailed years ago during a Christmas I didn't attend. Nathan in front of the tree, smiling. My parents on either side. Not even a mention of me on the back of the card. I turned the photo over. Scrawled in my mom's neat handwriting. Merry Christmas from all of us. All of us. As if I didn't exist. I put the photo down and opened my laptop. Nathan had been arrested on 5 counts: fraud, securities violations, money laundering, the works. His firm had collapsed. There were class action suits already underway. His partners were flipping to save themselves. He was done. And my parents? They had signed off on his investment accounts. Ones that were now revealed to be laundering tools. Their retirement was entangled in it. So was their home equity. That's why they were calling. Not because they miss me. Not because they realized they were wrong. They were drowning. And they thought I'd forgotten how to swim. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't my mother. It was him. Dad? I hadn't heard his voice in 4 years. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something in me, the same thing that kept me up building code until 3 a.m. in a windowless apartment 5 years ago, told me to answer. James. His voice cracked on the second syllable. It's your father. I know, I said. I kept my tone neutral, measured. Like we were strangers on a business call. What do you want? I figured we should talk. Man to man? Man to man. The same phrase he used when he took Nathan to his first football game but left me behind because I wasn't into sports. The same phrase he used when he taught Nathan to drive, while I had to ask a friend's dad to teach me. I'm listening, I said. He sighed. We're in a bad spot, son. Nathan, he made some bad choices. But he was trying to help the family. You have to understand. I don't have to do anything. I interrupted. He cleared his throat like he wasn't used to being interrupted. James, this isn't about pride. It's about family. We're in trouble. Funny, I said. You didn't think about family when you told me I was a disappointment. Or when you stopped calling. Or when Mom said I'd never be like Nathan. There was silence on the other end. I waited for him to deny it. He didn't. You were always so sensitive. He finally muttered. We were hard on you because we wanted you to be better. Better than what? I asked. Better than your golden son who just stole millions of dollars and burned down your retirement with it? Still, he didn't raise his voice. If anything, he sounded tired. Not guilty. Just tired. James, we need help. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If we lose the house, your mother doesn't have anywhere to go. She didn't seem too worried about that when she called me an embarrassment. Another pause. Then, finally, a whisper. She didn't mean that. But it was too late. The words had already been said. And the consequences were already unfolding. I exhaled, slow and calm. I'm going to think about it, I said. But I'm not promising anything. You've done well for yourself, he said. We've heard. We're proud of you. I smiled. Not a warm one. A cold one. Calculated. You only say that now because you need something. He didn't argue. I hung up. 3 days later, I drove back to my hometown for the first time in years. Not because I missed it. Not because I needed closure. But because I wanted them to see who I'd become. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Same cracked sidewalks, same tired lawns, same cul-de-sac of quiet resentment. But the house, their house, it looked smaller than I remembered. It always does, when you've outgrown something. I parked my matte black SUV across the street. The same driveway where I used to ride my bike while Nathan was being taught how to change the oil on Dad's car. I was never invited to watch. Now I was walking toward their door, shoes clicking with purpose, suit fitted, watch gleaming, posture tall. Mom opened the door. Her expression flickered between surprise and hope. James, she breathed, like she wasn't sure I was real. I gave her a small nod. You said we should talk? She stepped aside without a word. The hallway smelled the same, lemon cleaner and denial. Family photos still lined the walls. Every single one included Nathan. Not a single one of me. Dad was in the kitchen. He stood when I entered, but didn't come closer. We sat. It was like a scene from a film, The Prodigal Son Returns, but without the begging. Without the guilt. Without any intention of fixing the mess they made. I looked into it. I said, calm and direct. Your names are all over the joint accounts. That means you're not just collateral damage. You're implicated. They both flinched. I didn't know, my mother whispered. He told us it was safe. That's the thing about trust, I said. It only matters when it's tested. Dad leaned forward. So? Can you help us? We don't have anyone else. I met his eyes and smiled faintly. I know. That was the real power. They had nowhere else to turn. The embarrassment of me, the invisible, unremarkable son, had become their only hope. And they hated how badly they needed me. Which meant I was finally in control. I didn't come here to save you, I said, leaning back in the chair they used to tell me not to slouch in. I came here to see how far the mighty have fallen. Mom looked like she might cry. Dad's jaw clenched the way it always did when he wanted to yell but didn't want to look like the bad guy. I'm not your backup plan, I continued. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your second son who turned out to be just good enough in a crisis. But we're your family, my mother said, voice cracking. No, I replied, not missing a beat. Your relatives. Family shows up when it's hard. Family doesn't mock you behind closed doors or remind you who you'll never be. Dad finally snapped. So what? You're here to gloat? You think this makes you a man? I smiled. A slow, patient smile. No. Walking out made me a man. Building a life you said I'd never have made me one. This is just housekeeping. I reached into my coat pocket and placed a sealed envelope on the table. What's this? My mom asked, her fingers trembling as she reached for it. A lawyer's referral. One of the best defense attorneys in the state. I've paid the retainer. Her eyes widened. But there's a condition, I said. They both looked up, hanging on every word. This is the last thing I'll ever do for either of you. Silence. No calls. No emails. No reaching out when the storm hits again. No pretending like this mends what you broke. My father's lip curled. So this is revenge. I shook my head. No. This is a boundary. And I know you don't recognize that word, because all you ever taught me was obligation. But James, my mother whispered, you don't have to do this. I stood, buttoning my coat. You're right. I don't. But I am. Because I want to be the man I needed when I was younger. And that man? I added, looking between them. Walks away after doing the right thing, not because you deserve it, but because he finally knows he does. I wasn't going to. I told myself I didn't care what happened to him. But something pulled me to the courthouse that morning. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I needed to see for myself if the golden shine had finally worn off. Or maybe I just wanted to know what it looked like when a man ran out of mirrors. They had him in a navy suit, wrinkled at the cuffs. No tie. The press was there, but not as many as there would have been 6 months ago. His face was thinner than I remembered. A little gray at the temples. But still Nathan. Still smug. Still certain the world would eventually sort itself out around him. He didn't see me right away. I stayed at the back, blending in with the reporters. But when they called his name and he stood, our eyes met. He froze. Just for a second. Just enough for me to know he hadn't expected me to show up. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I didn't do anything at all. And that unsettled him more than any reaction ever could. Later, while he waited in a holding room, one of the guards asked if I was the brother. I said yes, and before I knew it, I was led in. He sat behind a scratched metal table. For once, he didn't look in control. James, he said with that familiar half-grin, like we were old friends catching up. I sat down across from him and said nothing. He shifted in his seat. Didn't expect to see you. I know. Silence stretched between us. He tapped his thumb against the table, a nervous habit I remembered from childhood. I messed up, he finally said. I tilted my head. You think? He chuckled, but it didn't land. Look, I'm not going to pretend I didn't do what they're saying. I got caught up. Things spiraled. I thought I could fix it before it got this far. You thought, I said slowly, that nothing bad would happen to you. Because it never did. He didn't deny it. You always landed on your feet, I said. And when you didn't, someone else caught you. Mom. Dad. Me. Nathan's smile faded. They told me you've done well. Really well. I leaned forward slightly. Yeah. I did. He exhaled, like he was swallowing pride for the first time in his life. That's good. I mean it. I stood. Don't mean it for me. Just mean it loud enough for the silence to hear you when they stop picking up your calls. I paused, hand on the back of the chair. This time, no one's coming to save you. He didn't argue. He just sat there, alone in a room that looked a lot like a cage. And for the first time in my life, I was free. The headlines came fast after that. Finance prodigy indicted in $48 million wire fraud scheme. Investors stunned as former Golden Boy faces 20 years. Family ties under scrutiny and high-profile scandal. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't even speak to the press. I didn't need to. The story told itself, and for once, I wasn't written out of it. People who once tripped over themselves to shake Nathan's hand were now deleting his number. The friends who toasted his engagement. Ghosted. The college buddies who name-dropped him at brunch. Now they whispered instead. Even Mom and Dad disappeared from view. No more holiday letters. No Facebook posts. No brunches or recitals or garden club events. Just gone. Too ashamed to show their faces, too proud to admit they had helped prop him up. And I? I thrived. The company expanded again. 2 new offices, one in Austin, another in Toronto. We brought on new investors, people who used to sit across from Nathan and now crossed the street to avoid his name. I didn't even have to mention it. They just knew I wasn't him. One afternoon, I got coffee with Carla, our lead designer. As we left the cafe, she looked at me and said, "You've been quiet lately." In a good way. Like you're carrying less weight. I nodded. Because I am. Because I had finally stopped needing them to see me. And started seeing myself. It was a Sunday afternoon. One of those golden fall days where the sky is too blue, the breeze too perfect. I was reading on my patio, a quiet jazz record playing low in the background, when I heard the doorbell. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my mother was standing there. She looked smaller. Not older, exactly, though the worry had settled into her skin, but diminished. Like the sharp edges had been dulled by months of desperation, by shame she still didn't quite know how to carry. "Hi," she said. No smile. No excuses. Just that one word, brittle and dry. I stepped aside without speaking. She walked in slowly, like she was afraid the air might crack around her. She looked at the decor, the high ceilings, the clean lines. She took it all in. I could see it in her eyes. She hadn't imagined I could build something like this. We sat across from each other, the way people do when there's too much history between them to sit side by side. She folded her hands in her lap and stared at them. "He's probably going to prison," she said quietly. "I know," I said. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "They froze our savings. Took the house. Your father and I are staying in a rental outside of town. Half the size, twice the cost." I didn't say anything. I let her sit in the mess she'd ignored for decades. Then she looked up. "I didn't come here to ask you for anything." I raised an eyebrow. "No?" She shook her head. "I came because I needed to see you." A long pause passed between us. "I think," she said slowly, "I thought if I ignored the things you were doing, your work, your life, it would make it less real. Or maybe it just made it easier to pretend Nathan was still the one." She paused. "But now I see, he wasn't." It should have felt like a victory. Some grand, triumphant validation. But it didn't. Because I didn't need it anymore. I had already let go. "What do you want from me?" I asked softly. Her voice cracked. "Forgiveness. Maybe just space to say I was wrong." I looked at her. Not angry. Not moved. Just clear. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I don't need you either." She blinked like she hadn't expected that. "That's fair," she whispered. "I spent my whole life trying to earn what you gave Nathan for free," I continued. "Your attention. Your trust. Your love. And now that he's fallen, you're finally looking around to see who's left standing." "I know," she said. And to her credit, she didn't try to defend herself. She didn't deny it. "I built something without you," I said. "Without any of you. So whatever healing happens here, it's on my terms." She nodded slowly. "Okay." I stood. She took that as her cue and rose with me. At the door, she hesitated. "You were always better than we knew." I opened the door. "I know." And then she stepped outside. She didn't ask if she could come back sometime. She didn't ask for updates. She didn't ask for help. She just walked to her car, got in, and drove away.